The rejected heir. The palace of Valoria stood high above the clouds. Its silver towers shimmered under the light of 3 suns. Inside, noble aliens in shining robes gathered in the grand hall, waiting for the royal announcement. But today was not a day of celebration. Princess Sarai, the only child of the emperor, was about to be declared heir to the throne. The problem? She was blind and partially paralyzed since birth. Her legs had never moved, and her eyes had never seen. The aliens of Valoria believed their rulers must be strong, perfect, and powerful. Sarai was none of those things. She sat quietly on her throne, her thin hands folded in her lap. Her silver hair fell around her face like a curtain. She wore a crown, but it looked too heavy for her fragile frame. Her eyes were open, but lifeless. She could hear the whispers all around her. Why her? A blind heir? That's a curse. She cannot even stand. She cannot lead. Sarai heard them all. She didn't flinch. The emperor raised his voice. By blood and law, Sarai is the next ruler, but she must first complete the bonding ceremony. Everyone fell silent. The bonding ceremony was ancient. Before a royal could rule, they had to form a spiritual bond with a warrior, a protector. It wasn't just tradition, it was survival. Without this bond, the royal soul remained weak and exposed to dark energies. The strongest warriors were lined up across the hall. Tall, armored, proud. One by one, they were invited to bond with Sarai. One by one, they refused. A huge, red-scaled alien stepped forward. She is not worthy of my strength. Another, with glowing eyes and golden armor, shook his head. She will bring shame. I will not bond with her. Sarai sat still, her heart sinking. She wanted to scream, but her lips remained closed. She knew this would happen. It always did. People saw her as broken, useless, a burden. Suddenly, the doors opened. A human walked in. He was different from the others, shorter, without scales, and wearing a plain military jacket. His name was Jason Cole, a soldier from Earth assigned to observe the royal rituals. No one expected him to speak, but he did. Jason looked around the hall, then at Sarai. I'll bond with her. Laughter exploded through the hall. A human? Is this a joke? He doesn't even have energy sense. Jason ignored them. He walked forward, slowly, respectfully. He stopped before Sarai and knelt down. I don't care what they say, he said gently. I don't see weakness in you. I see someone who's been strong alone for too long. Sarai turned her head slightly. For the first time in a long time, she felt something inside her. Hope. But you're not one of us, she whispered. They'll never accept it. Jason smiled. Then let them hate. I came here to observe, but I can't walk away after seeing how they treat you. The Emperor's voice rang out. Are you certain, human? Once bonded, your soul will be forever tied to hers. Jason didn't blink. Yes, I'm sure. The hall grew silent again. The bonding priest stepped forward. He placed an ancient crystal between them. Place your hands on the stone, he said. Jason gently placed his hand on the crystal. Sarai, with a trembling hand, followed. As soon as their fingers touched the surface, the crystal glowed blue. The air trembled. A warm wind blew through the hall. Sarai's body shook. Jason closed his eyes. Suddenly, a flash of light burst from the crystal. Everyone stepped back, shielding their eyes. When the light faded, the crystal was gone. In its place, a glowing mark appeared on Sarai's wrist, and a matching one on Jason's. The bond was complete. Gasps echoed through the chamber. The impossible had happened. A human had bonded with an alien princess, but not everyone was happy. In the shadows, a cloaked figure whispered to another, "This bond cannot be allowed to stand. We must destroy it." Sarai sat quietly, her breathing slow, her mind racing. For the first time, she felt connected. For the first time, someone had chosen her, not because of duty, but because he saw her value. Jason leaned closer and whispered, "You're not alone anymore." She nodded slowly, and for the first time in her life, she smiled. The bond no one expected. The sun had set over the palace of Valoria, casting a silver glow across the sky. Inside the ancient chamber of spirits, the air was heavy with silence. Only two figures remained: Princess Sarai, sitting upright with her head slightly tilted, and Jason Cole, the only human in the galaxy to ever bond with royal alien blood. He didn't know what to expect after the ritual. Honestly, neither did she. Jason looked at the glowing mark on his wrist. It pulsed gently, like a slow heartbeat. Across from him, Sarai's fingers moved as if searching for something unseen. Her head tilted again, her lips slightly parted. "It's strange," she whispered, "but I feel you." Jason raised an eyebrow. "Feel me?" "Not like touch," Sarai said, her voice soft. "Like your emotions, your thoughts. You're nervous, aren't you?" Jason laughed quietly. "I've faced death in battle, Sarai, but right now I'm terrified of tea parties with alien nobles." She smiled again. That smile, small and fragile, still felt like a sunrise in a cold world. But outside the sacred chamber, things weren't warm. News of the human princess bond spread across the empire like wildfire. The royal council was in panic. High Counselor Dravik, a tall alien with black horns and glowing veins, slammed his fist on the council table. "This bond is unnatural," he roared. "We've had bonding failures before, but this breaks every law of tradition." Another council member, a thin female with silver eyes, spoke softly. "Yet the bond is complete. The mark is proof." Dravik leaned forward. "Then we change the law, or we break the bond." Inside the princess's chambers, Jason helped Sarai into a chair. She moved slowly, her hands shaking. "You okay?" he asked. I felt something earlier," she said, staring into the empty air. "My leg, a tingle like fireflies walking over it." Jason blinked. "Wait, are you saying your leg moved?" "No," she shook her head, "but I felt it. After all these years, I felt something." Jason crouched beside her, serious now. "Maybe the bond's doing more than we thought." Sarai turned her face toward him. "You think I can be fixed?" Jason frowned. "You're not broken, but yeah, maybe something's changing." The door slammed open. Emperor Valorian entered with a heavy cloak and a troubled face. Behind him walked 3 silent guards. "My daughter," the Emperor said, "your bond has caused a storm. The council wants it undone." Jason stood up. "You can't undo a soul bond." "You can," the Emperor replied, "but it requires pain, deep pain, and separation. Are you willing to let her suffer just to be noble?" Jason didn't answer. He looked at Sarai. She was calm. "I don't want to be unbonded," she said clearly. "For the first time in my life, I feel alive." The Emperor sighed. "Then you must prepare. Tomorrow you will face the trial of binding. If the bond is true, it will survive." That night, Jason sat on the balcony, looking up at Valoria's moons. The wind carried the scent of alien flowers and danger. Sarai joined him quietly in her hover chair. "Do you think we'll pass the trial?" Jason looked at her. "Honestly, I don't know, but I didn't come this far to walk away." "No," she said softly. "When I was a child, I used to dream of someone like you. Someone who wouldn't look at me with pity. Someone who didn't flinch when they saw my eyes." Jason turned to her. "Well, I used to dream of flying, ships, and now I'm bonded to a blind alien princess in a glowing palace." They both laughed. For a moment, the universe felt small and simple. But deep inside the palace, in the underground halls, High Counselor Dravik met with a cloaked figure. "If they pass the trial," Dravik growled, "we lose everything. The bloodline, The prophecy. The control. The figure stepped forward, revealing a knife made of soulstone. Then they won't survive it. The princess who could feel again. The first thing Princess Sarai felt when she woke was warmth. Real warmth. It started in her toes, a quiet fire slowly spreading upward, like her legs were waking up from a long, dark sleep. She didn't move. Them yet. She was afraid it was just a dream, but her heart was beating faster. For 20 years, Sarai had lived without touch, without sight, and without the feeling of her own body. She was known across the galaxy as the Silent Rose. Beautiful, fragile, untouchable. But now, something was different. Jason Cole stood at the side of her bed, watching closely. He hadn't slept all night. After the trial of binding, they were both exhausted, but something had changed. Jason could feel it. He leaned in. "Sarai, are you okay?" She didn't answer right away. Then, slowly, she whispered, "Jason, my feet are warm." Jason blinked. "Wait, you can feel your feet?" She nodded very slightly. A tear rolled down her cheek. "And my fingers. They tingle. It's like my body. It's waking up." Jason sat down, stunned. "That's not supposed to happen, right?" "No," Sarai said, shaking. "Even our best healers said it was impossible." Jason touched the glowing bond mark on his wrist. It was pulsing, just like hers. Meanwhile, the royal healers were called in. They scanned her body again and again, whispering in disbelief. Nerve activity, energy surges, cellular repair, none of it made sense. "She's healing," one of them said. "It's slow, but real." News of Sarai's recovery spread like wildfire. Some called it a miracle, others called it dangerous. In the council hall, High Counselor Dravik was furious. "This is no miracle, it's a mutation, a threat to our traditions." Another elder replied, "Or perhaps, a sign that our traditions must change." Dravik stood silently for a moment, then smiled coldly. "If change is coming, let's see how far the princess can go." Back in her private chamber, Sarai stood for the first time, not walked. Not fully, but stood, her hands clutching the frame of her bed, her legs shaking, her eyes wide though blind. Jason stood behind her, ready to catch her if she fell. "You're doing it," he said softly. Sarai laughed, a sound Jason had never heard from her before. It was light, musical, almost childlike. "I'm standing, Jason. I never thought I'd feel this." He nodded. "You're stronger than anyone here ever believed." But just as the moment felt pure, a loud chime rang through the palace. A message. Jason read the screen. Mandatory evaluation. Bonding interference investigation. Report to Council Room 7. "They're watching us," Sarai said. "They think this is some trick." Jason sighed. "They don't understand. They've spent so long fearing weakness. They can't see power growing right in front of them." In the council room, Sarai and Jason stood before a long table of alien nobles. Dravik leaned forward. "Tell us, human, did you use Earth technology to enhance the bond?" "No," Jason replied calmly. "Everything that's happened because we trust each other." Sarai added, "Because someone finally looked at me without disgust." The room went silent. But Dravik had one final move. "If this bond is real," he said, "then let her walk across the Hall of Flames tomorrow, alone." Jason stepped forward. "That's cruel, she's only just—" Sarai raised her hand to stop him. "I'll do it." Jason turned to her. "Sarai," she smiled. "Let them see. Let them all see." That night, Jason helped her practice. Step by step, inside her room. He wrapped her in support gear, showed her how to hold a balance stick. She fell. She tried again. She fell again. He didn't stop her. Neither did she. By the 10th try, she walked 5 steps. "Tomorrow," Jason said, "you don't need to prove anything." Sarai shook her head. "I'm not doing this for them. I'm doing this for me." The next day, the grand hall was packed. Aliens from every corner of Valoria gathered. The Hall of Flames glowed with blue fire. The path was wide but unforgiving. One wrong step and she would fall, not just to the floor but in front of the entire empire. Sarai entered slowly. Jason watched from behind, heart pounding. She took the first step, then another, then another. Her legs shook. Her breathing trembled. The crowd was silent. She walked halfway, then nearly slipped. Jason took a step forward, but Sarai raised her hand to stop him. She steadied herself and walked the rest of the way, alone. When she reached the end, the crowd gasped. Some stood. Some clapped. And for the first time in Valoria's history, a disabled, blind alien princess stood proud in the Hall of Flames. Not because of magic, not because of pity, because of will, and because a human chose to believe in her when no one else would. Assassin in the shadows. The stars above Valoria shimmered quietly, but inside the royal palace the silence wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, the kind of silence that hides something sharp beneath it. Princess Sarai stood on her balcony wrapped in a soft blue cloak. The glow of her bond mark pulsed gently on her wrist. Her legs still ached from the trial, but the pain was beautiful. It meant she was healing. It meant her body was hers again. Behind her, Jason sat on a bench watching her like a silent guardian. Since the bond, they had grown closer, not just in spirit, but in quiet understanding. He never pitied her. And now, Sarai no longer pitied herself. But peace never lasts in a palace built on pride. That night, as most of the court slept, a shadow moved where no guard was posted. The figure wore soft black armor, its body nearly invisible against the ancient walls. It held a blade, curved, glowing, and carved from forbidden soulstone. The assassin had one purpose: break the bond by ending the human. Meanwhile, Jason was, in the training hall, showing Sarai how to swing a wooden staff. She couldn't see the targets, but her ears were sharp now. She had learned to listen, to the hum of the lights, the change in footsteps, the movement of wind. She struck a dummy clean across the chest. Jason clapped. That would have knocked a full-grown soldier down. Sarai grinned. I'm starting to like breaking things. Jason smirked. Let's just make sure it's the bad guys. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed down the hallway. Jason turned. Did you hear that? Sarai nodded. Footsteps, fast. Too light to be a guard. Jason moved toward the door. Too late. A blur flew from the shadows. Jason pushed Sarai aside and barely dodged the first strike. The soulstone blade scraped his arm, burning through his jacket and slicing flesh. Jason groaned, grabbing a staff, from the wall. The assassin didn't speak. It struck again. Low, fast, precise. Jason blocked, but he was outmatched. The assassin moved like a ghost. Sarai crawled backward, heart pounding. Then she remembered. Sound. She closed her eyes and listened. Not with fear, but with purpose. The blade swings left. Jason steps back. The assassin's foot scuffs the marble. He's behind Jason now. Sarai screamed, "Duck!" Jason dropped instantly. The assassin's blade missed his head by inches. Jason rolled, grabbed a second staff, and threw it. Crack! The staff hit the assassin in the shoulder. The figure stumbled back, hissing. Guards were already running down the hall, alerted by the noise. The assassin turned toward Sarai, who was now standing, wobbling, gripping a training stick. Jason shouted, "Stay back!" But Sarai didn't. She stepped forward slowly but firmly and swung. The assassin blocked, but just barely. She swung again, this time lower, a strike to the knee. The assassin fell to one side. Jason tackled him from behind. Guards swarmed in. The soulstone blade clattered to the floor. The mask came off. Everyone froze. It was General Vekar, once one of the most loyal royal guards, now a traitor. Later in the healing chamber, Jason's arm was wrapped in glowing bandages. Sarai sat beside him, still holding the staff tightly. They wanted to break us, she said. Jason nodded. And they tried. Hard. Sarai looked at him, her face serious. This is no longer just about proving I can stand. It's about surviving, Jason replied, and changing everything this empire thought it knew. Elsewhere in the Council of Shadows, Dravik's voice echoed through the dark. You failed. General Vekar, now chained and bruised, didn't speak. Dravik turned to the others. The bond is growing stronger. Even her body obeys again. If we wait longer, she will rule. One of the others whispered, Then what do we do? Dravik's eyes glowed red. Next time we don't just target the human. He looked at the ancient war map glowing on the wall. We destroy the bond at its source, her heart. That night, Sarai and Jason sat quietly in the garden, stars blinking above. Jason looked at her scarred hands and whispered, You're the strongest person I know. Sarai replied, I'm just learning how to fight. You've done that your whole life. Jason shook his head. No, fighting with weapons is easy. Fighting to be seen, to be respected when the world calls you broken, that's strength. She leaned against his shoulder, and for the first time since birth, Sarai didn't feel like a burden. She felt like a warrior. Rise of the real princess. The training hall was quiet, except for the sound of breathing. Deep, controlled, focused. Princess Sarai stood barefoot on the smooth floor, blindfolded, gripping her training staff. Her legs trembled, but she didn't fall. Her ears caught every sound. Her bond with Jason had changed her. Not just her body, but her spirit. Jason stood silently at the edge, arms crossed, watching her. Then he threw a wooden block toward her. Without sight, without warning. Sarai spun and struck. Cracked. The block split in two midair and hit the ground. Jason smiled. You're not just walking now, you're fighting. Sarai pulled off the blindfold, her pale eyes facing the sunlight. I'm ready to stop hiding. In the council tower, rumors spread quickly. Nobles argued, whispered, and made secret. Visits to Dravik's chamber. She walks, she speaks, she trains. What else can she do now? Will the people accept her? Will we let her rule? But Dravik didn't argue. He watched a silent screen showing Sarai training harder than any warrior in lineage ever had. She's more than a princess now, he muttered. She's becoming dangerous. Sarai's rise wasn't just physical, it was public. In secret, Jason helped her visit the lower rings of the city, the forgotten slums of Valoria. People down there had never even seen the princess before. They expected a fragile royal covered in silk. What they saw was a tall young woman in a simple tunic leaning on a cane, smiling with open hands. A boy whispered, She's like us. A mother cried. She didn't come with guards. And when Sarai knelt to help an elder who had fallen, the people realized something. She was real. Back in the palace, Sarai stood before her father. I want to speak at the public forum, she said. The emperor frowned. That's not a place for royals. She raised her head. Then it's exactly where I should be. Jason stood behind her, silent but firm. The emperor looked at him, then at his daughter. You've changed, he said. Sarai replied, No, I've only started being me. The next day, the grand forum of Valoria was filled. Thousands gathered, nobles on balconies, civilians on the streets, soldiers in formation. Sarai walked onto the central stage, cane in one hand, no throne behind her. The wind played with her hair. She didn't need a crown today. She raised her voice. I was born into a world that called me broken. They looked at my eyes and saw weakness. They saw my silence and assumed I had no voice. She paused. I was blind. I could not walk. And still, they feared me. Why? Because I carry royal blood? No. Because they feared change. Jason watched, from the side. He could feel the bond glowing between them. Sarai continued. But I changed not because of magic, not because of medicine. I changed because someone looked at me, not as a burden, but as a person. She pointed to the people. And I see you. I know your pain, your hunger, your silence, and I promise, If I ever rule, I will not rule above you. I will rise with you." The crowd exploded into cheers. Even the nobles couldn't deny it. The people had chosen her. That night, Dravik stormed through the council chambers. "It's over," he snapped. "We've lost control." "No," another whispered. "There's still one law we haven't used." Dravik turned slowly. "The law of pure blood." The others nodded. "If she breaks that law, she's disqualified from the throne, even if the people love her." Dravik smiled. "We make her choose. Her crown, or the human." Hours later, a letter arrived at Sarai's chamber. She read the words with Jason standing beside her. "The council demands I renounce the bond," she whispered. "If I don't, I lose my right to the throne." Jason didn't speak. Sarai closed her eyes. "They're forcing me to choose between my soul and my people." Jason finally said, "Then let them force it. But don't let them break it." She turned to him, heart pounding. "I didn't fight to stand, just to kneel." Again. And that night, in the darkness of Valoria, the people didn't chant for tradition. They didn't chant for rules. They chanted one name: Sarai, Sarai, Sarai. And in the shadows of the council tower, for the first time, Dravik felt afraid. The betrayal ceremony, the palace of Valoria, had never looked so beautiful, and never felt so fake. Bright silk banners flew high. Musicians played soft alien flutes. The nobles wore their finest robes. Everything looked perfect. But underneath the smiles, something rotten waited to explode. Princess Sarai had been invited to a special royal unity ceremony. The council claimed it was to honor her recovery and her growing bond with the people. But Jason knew better. So did she. "They're not celebrating me," Sarai whispered that morning. "They're setting a trap." Jason nodded. "They know. The people stand with you now. This is their last move." As the twin suns rose, Sarai dressed in a dark royal suit. No silk, no gold. She refused to wear the traditional veil. She was no longer hiding. Jason wore his Earth military jacket, patched from battle, his bond mark glowing through the sleeve. They entered the grand hall together, side by side. Thousands watched in silence. The emperor sat on the throne, face unreadable. The council stood behind him. Dravik smiled, but his eyes were cold. The high voice of the court stepped forward. "Today, we gather to celebrate the strength of unity. But first, one law must be addressed." Everyone went still. "By the law of pure blood," the high voice declared, "no heir may bond with one outside royal lineage or species." Jason's jaw clenched. Dravik stepped forward now. "Princess Sarai, you have bonded with a human. If you wish to keep your claim to the throne, you must sever the bond, publicly. Now." Gasps echoed through the hall. Sarai didn't move. Jason looked at her, calm but tense. He didn't speak. This was her fight. Sarai stepped toward the center of the hall. Slowly, strongly. "I was born blind," she began. "I could not walk. And yet you crowned me heir. But now that I stand before you, now that I walk and speak and lead, you want to break me again. Not because I'm weak, but because I found strength where you feared it." She looked at Jason. "I bonded with a human. Yes. But that bond didn't make me less. It made me whole." Whispers rippled across the nobles. Dravik shouted, "Then you forfeit your crown." The emperor finally stood. "She forfeits nothing," he said loudly. "The people love her. She stood in the Hall of Flames. She fought an assassin and won, and she speaks with more honor than this entire room." Dravik's face twisted in rage. "You protect her now," he said to the emperor, "but you won't be able to protect what comes next." He raised his hand. Suddenly, explosions rocked the palace. Smoke poured through the back entrance. Guards screamed. Energy blasts echoed down the halls. Jason jumped in front of Sarai. Dozens of shadow-suited attackers, Dravik's secret militia, stormed the hall. "Get down!" Jason yelled. But Sarai didn't hide. She stood tall, grabbed her staff, and shouted, "Citadel Guard to me!" Her voice echoed like thunder. Her elite guards rushed in. Chaos exploded. Jason grabbed a plasma rod and fought hand to hand. Sarai, though still blind, used her training, listening, moving, striking. She disarmed one attacker with a single swing. Another came from behind. Jason shot him mid-air. The nobles ran. The people panicked. But the bond between Sarai and Jason blazed like fire. Each step they took, each movement was in sync. It was as if their souls danced through war together. Finally, Dravik himself stepped forward, holding a soul-breaker blade. He moved toward Sarai. Jason blocked him. Blades clashed. Sparks flew. Jason grunted, barely holding Dravik back. "You don't belong here," Dravik spat. "She's ours." Jason bled from the side but smiled. "She's not yours. She's hers." Sarai stepped in behind him and struck Dravik's hand. The blade flew. Then she walked forward alone. "Your time is over," she told him. Dravik lunged, but the Emperor raised his hand. "Guards, arrest him." In seconds, Dravik was chained and dragged away, screaming. Hours later, the hall was quiet. The wounded were healed. The smoke was gone. But something new filled the air. Hope. Sarai stood before the crowd once more. "No law can stand against truth," she said. "No tradition can survive if it forgets the soul of the people." She turned to Jason. "I chose him, and I'll choose him again. 1,000 times." The people roared. Jason took her hand, and the Empire finally bowed, not because they were forced, but because they wanted to. Her throne, his promise. The throne room was quiet, not the silence of fear, not the silence of lies, but the kind of silence that comes after a storm, when the world takes a breath, and something new is about to begin. Princess Sarai stood at the center of the room. No crown, no royal robes. Her cane was gone. Her legs, once lifeless, now stood steady. Jason Cole stood beside her, not behind her, not ahead. Beside her, the Emperor looked at them both and spoke, voice low but clear. "The council is broken. The old laws are ashes. Today, we begin again." He turned and stepped down from the throne. The crowd held its breath. Would Sarai sit? Would she take the crown? Would she rule? Sarai looked at the steps before her. Then she looked at Jason. And finally, she sat on the throne. But not as a symbol. Not as someone carried by others. She sat as someone who had walked there by her own strength. In the days that followed, change swept across Valoria. Sarai passed new laws, ones that protected the weak and honored the different. The law of pure blood was erased. Jason was named Royal Guardian, not because of his bond, but because of his bravery. But Sarai never called him her protector. She called him her equal, and the people accepted him, not as an outsider, but as a part of Valoria's future. One night, weeks later, Sarai and Jason walked through the lower city, where they had first met the common people. Lights flickered from small houses. Children played in the streets. The people smiled when they saw her. A little blind girl ran up and hugged Sarai's leg. "You're like me," she said softly. Sarai knelt and touched the girl's face gently. "No," she replied with a smile. "You're like you. And that's enough." The crowd clapped quietly. Even Jason had to turn away, just to hide the water in his eyes. Later, on a quiet hill just outside the palace, Jason and Sarai sat watching the stars. Above them, 2 moons drifted across the sky, glowing softly. Sarai leaned her head on his shoulder. "Do you ever miss Earth?" she asked. Jason thought for a moment, then shook his head. "No," he said. "I don't miss where I came from, because I've already found where I belong." She smiled. "You've changed my world," she whispered. Jason looked at her, seriously. "Now, and you've changed me. I came here thinking I'd just watch history happen. I never thought I'd be a part of it. But you made me feel needed. She took his hand. You weren't just needed, she said. You were the reason. I survived. Jason looked into her blind eyes that couldn't see but somehow always saw deeper than anyone else. Then I promise, he said slowly, I'll stand beside you. Every step, every fight, every joy. Not because you need me, but because I want to be there. Sarai smiled softly. That, she whispered, is the only kind of bond that matters. Years later, alien children in schools read about the blind princess who stood alone, about the human who saw what no one else did, about how they fought a system and won not with war but with truth, trust, and love. They didn't change just a throne. They changed a galaxy.